Thank you, Ann. So like Ann said, I'm Chris Garvey, and I'm running for Sparks Mayor. I was born and raised here in Sparks. I'm a lifelong Nevadan. I went to school here, and after graduating from Reed High School, I attended UNR and also worked at, it was Sierra Developmental Center, it's now Sierra Regional Center. And that was in mental health and disabilities. So after graduating, shortly after there, I married my husband, Tom. We'll be married 42 years this year. And we have 3 children and 4 amazing grandchildren. I know you find that hard to believe that my grandchildren are amazing more than anyone else's, but and then we actually had to move to Southern Nevada in the late 80s because at the time Barbara Bennett put a building moratorium here in Reno. My husband was in construction. So down there, as my children got a little older, I was very involved in their schools, and I also got my real estate license. So I have some experience there. During that time, Vegas was booming. It was exploding. Double session, year round, all that. So very, very involved that way. And as it would happen, I actually got to the point where I ran for school board, and I was elected 3 times to the Clark County School District, School of the Trustees, School Board of Trustees, 5th largest district in the nation. So during that time, became very familiar with budgets and how to run transportation, engage my constituents, learn how to do policy, learn when policy doesn't work. And also, I had a big experience on the impact that that organization had on the economy. When COVID came, it was devastating to think what was going to happen if our district shut down, and it would impact the entire city, from our first responders to people that delivered the toilet paper. So I have to say, during that time, I was very cautious about doing that. I wanted to make sure all of our at-risk teachers were able to do from home if they wanted to, but I also wanted to continue children in the classroom, and that did not happen. But and I think we're seeing some of the impact of that now. When I finished my term, I was turned out. I came back home to be with my family and take care of my family. He still lives here. My father has passed, but during that time, I spent a lot of time with to take care of him and suffered from health stuff. The reason I'm in this race is because we were renting in Spanish Springs, and the individuals that owned the house while we were thinking about building came back early from California, and so we moved into an old family home in the heart of Sparks, Rock Boulevard and C Street. So if any of you have driven by there, you know exactly where I'm talking about. And 2 days before we moved in, individuals set my neighbor's home on fire in the alleyway. That then set the next door neighbor's house on fire. Luckily, ours didn't burn down. And when we reached out, when we talked to the fire marshal, they had identified the individuals. They knew them by name. They were homeless. And he told me there's probably not a lot that's going to happen here because there's no reason to prosecute them. Nothing will come of it. So I reached out to my city official, my councilman, and that went back and forth. And he was nice enough and he tried to give some answers, but he didn't have a lot. Finally, after a couple of months of not getting any answers, I took my answers in writing down to the city council and presented them and asked them to please give me some answers because I want to work to help solve these problems. I don't expect you to solve all of them, but I don't know what I can do as an advocate if you're not going to help me. When I finally got my answers, it was 175 days from my initial contact. And I just thought, this is not right. This is not how government is supposed to react to its citizens. And some of the answers were kind of insulting or were frightening. Like, we mismanaged a grant from HUD, and that's why we lost those grants that helped seniors stay in their homes, or give owners no interest loans to repair their homes. And that's when I decided that I was going to run. So what do I hope to accomplish? Well, for me, safety is number one, because I know the heart of any city is pumped with the blood of small business. And if you don't have a safe environment, you won't draw families, businesses will leave or they won't come. And eventually those tourists do this with all the mess and send it home to everyone they know saying, food was great, but it was scary as heck, our car got broken in. So that kills a city quicker than anything. So right now, Sparks is 15 officers down. We need to really start looking at what are we doing there? Are we just doing this, the usual recruitment of posting it on the website? Are we using those dollars that are in the budget and funneling them elsewhere? Because I've seen that happen. Saw it happen at the Clark County School District. So we got to get our police back fully staffed so that they can do more than just triage. We also have to look at our infrastructure. Right now, we're trying to just play catch up all the time, and there's no plan that's really in place. So we have to have a real plan that addresses old infrastructure and how do we pay for new infrastructure. Development needs to actually pay for itself. And I've seen it happen. Summerlin is an excellent example of a company that made their product so appealing and provided the infrastructure that everyone needed that came to live there. So those are conversations I think need to happen when we look at growth. I'm not saying no growth, but I'm saying we need to be a little more structured about our growth and think about how it comes in. Are we doing middle housing? Because right now, we just seem to be getting very expensive housing. And that leaves a lot of people vulnerable. And in fact, Sparks has fewer low-income housing options for seniors and veterans today than it did 6 years ago. And we're almost at a point where a lot of those properties will opt out of the interest kind of program that they had for their loan to do those, because they commit to a certain time period to keep the rent low, and once that's done, then they're free to charge market rate. So we need to be looking at what are the options that we can to create options that are affordable for our seniors, our veterans. Look at middle housing for young families so that they have an option to succeed and grow. And then also what aligns with our quality of life. Yeah, people want to come here because it's wonderful. It's a great place to be. But will it be a great place to be if all the mountaintops are locked off and you can't get home in less than an hour and a half, and you see 2 accidents on the way, and oh, grandma passed away because the EMTs didn't get there in time. So that's where I think we need to start looking at, and we need to be honest with our constituents. This is where we're at. These are our needs. This is what it's costing. It's going to cost. You know, do we have buy-in? Here are options that we can do to look at how can we pay for this. Just chasing after development and raising property taxes can't be the only way. If you succeed, the city succeeds, because that bucket gets filled up with tax dollars from sales tax and other revenues. So that's basically what I want to do. I want to be able to collaborate with our organizations, because I'm telling you what, first time here, and that road, I'm like, oh, and if it made me think, oh gosh, you know, I probably need an extra 20 just to make sure. A lot of times people will go, do I really want to go there? It's always so hard to get in there or that. So we need to have that conversation between businesses and city planners. You know, when is Hot August Nights? Well, Hot August Nights was the same time they were tearing up all the courtyard there in downtown Victorian Square. And in fact, when I walked there about a month ago, well, maybe it's only 3 weeks, one of the businesses shut down because of all the events that closed the roads fronted right on his gym. So that's a business we lost. And Sparks is growing and it's different. It's Spanish population has grown a lot. And we need to be able to pivot and encourage them as business entrepreneurs and figure out what's going to help them. What barriers do we face as we look at a different demographic that needs help and a foot up in becoming successful business owners and that. So I think we're missing that a little bit right now in Sparks. And I want to make sure that people are being able to connect with you and have conversations about what is the ROI on the chamber. Because with the way things are changing now, social media and everything helps small business get an instant return on ROI. How many hits did I get? How many customers? Whereas this organization sometimes is about connection and relationship, and it takes a little longer. So what can we do as a city to help you succeed so that we succeed? So I'd be happy to take any question. And yes.
First off, thank you for accepting the chamber's invitation to be here. I have a two-part question. You mentioned that when policy does not work, which also tells me that you also know when it does work. I'd like you to tell me and enlighten me when policy doesn't work, what type of policies don't work and what policies do.
Yeah. Well, as a school board trustee, when you're first elected and in office, you're very insulated. Everyone that you talk to tells you, oh, this is perfect. This is a great idea. This is going to be really good policy. So you push that through thinking, oh, great, we're helping kids. We're going to improve student achievement. And then 6 months later, when you visit classroom, and people are brave enough to tell you, this is causing this problem. Now we can't do this. None of the kids are able to, even get online. The classic example, when the state decided we're going to go to all online testing. We don't have enough connectivity in our rural areas to do that. A big problem. So it's always, you have to be able to do that circle back, to do that monitoring. A classic example of why I say that's someplace we can improve in at the city. That meeting I went to deliver those questions, they were also being asked, the council was being asked to ratify a grant that would allow 3 officers to be used for policing, community policing in apartment buildings in high crime areas of Sparks. I spoke on that to say, I support this. I think it's a good idea. If done right, it can really help these neighborhoods. But I asked the council to make it contingent upon having the officer, the chief, bring back in 6 months, what has happened? Is it being effective? And what things have you learned from this? And then do it again every 6 months until the grant is done. Because in a couple of years, you're going to ask citizens to pay that $1.2 million that this grant is. And not one conversation about it, not one statement, and not one vote for it. It was easy to do, and it would be effective. And it would allow the public to know. Because when I asked my councilman afterward, why would you be reluctant to do this? He goes, well, what am I supposed to monitor every grant we get? And I wanted to say, well, yes, you are. But I said, this is an important one that's about safety, and it's a lot of money, and it didn't cost anything. He goes, well, they'll tell us if it's working. I'm like, they'll tell you, but who's going to tell us? Who's going to let the public have an opportunity to have that voice in that conversation? So that's an example of, you have to not only put together that good policy you think it is, but then you have to keep massaging it or toss it in the dumpster or grow it, depending on if it actually works as it's implemented down in the trenches. Is that enough?
One clarification, and I don't want to take away from anybody else. So what types of policy work? Is there, can you categorize policies that actually do work
Well,
at that?
having a smart plan, obviously, is good in crafting policy. You have to identify the problem that you want to correct or create a good thing. Then you have to figure out who are the players, what is the cost, what is the timeline, who's going to be responsible, how are we going to monitor, is it sustainable? All of those things go into crafting good policy. And is there a reason? I mean, I can tell you, I've had a lot of people talk about sustainability of, our city and that. And do I think public transportation is a good thing? Yeah, it can be a really good thing. But it makes me upset when I only see 2 people on a bus going by my house every day and I know how much it costs. And it makes me upset when Prater Way goes from 4 lanes to 2 lanes to put a bike lane and wider sidewalks in, but it's the same amount of traffic on there. And there's no bus key turnouts for the bus stops. So that 1 lane now is blocking all the traffic behind it. So those are things where I've seen policy where it's just, oh, it's a feel-good thing, and it does nothing. So that's the other thing, is you can have a great goal, but if it does nothing, what's the point? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. You've obviously been knocking on doors and speaking with Sparks residents. What do they say are their 3 most important priorities?
Safety. Doesn't matter if you're in Spanish Springs or down in Sparks, because even Spanish Springs now is shocked that their cars are being broken into, that people are trying to open their back doors in the middle of the night. And they're even starting to see some homeless creeping into their business areas and that. And the other thing is traffic. Traffic, no matter where you live, but mostly in Spanish Springs. And they're worried about it. They're worried that development is out of control, that there is no plan. And every time you try and address the traffic issue, you've already put 3 times what you're fixing back into the system. So they're worried about that. And I think the last thing is frustration. They don't feel like they need to even bother calling either the police or the city, because no one will respond. Police, is there a gun? Is someone bleeding? That's the triage, that's the priority. And if it's like, somebody broke into my car, come down and file a report.
So I have a 2-part question as well. First one has to do with safety. So there is a plan that's been talked about for multiple years about regionalizing both fire and EMS. That conversation is taking place as we speak. What's your position on that? And then the second is sewage, and what are we going to do with the waste that did we keep growing? And as sewage treatment plan is outdated, how are we going to fix that?
Right. So the first, regionalizing can be a good thing if it works well. I think we cooperate a little bit already. And I know that with CCSD, we did the same with Metro. But not all relationships are good. So I think any of those conversations need to be very clear on what our expectations and obligations. How are we going to make sure that we have enough coverage if we, regionalize, because sometimes that makes people think, oh, we don't need as many because we'll just pull from this area. But those are things that I would have to listen to the plan. I want to talk to the people that are fighting that. I know with the firefighters right now, their concern is about call times. They're worried. Right now, we just got Station 6 out in Spanish Springs approved, and they've got the plan starting in that. But we could have probably done a lot of things different, had a prototype for fire stations instead of having to do it totally over and over and over again, paying for that. We could have had builders who have big, developments say, you know what, you want this big development? This is the infrastructure you have to pay for. Henderson does that.
Yeah, it should be pay as you go anyway.
Mhm.
You gotta build with
Right.
things on so far.
Right.
Public safety
But
and roads.
yeah, I don't put myself out there as an expert in fire safety or anything like that. But I think we need to have those conversations and be transparent in what does that mean? What does regionalizing mean? You know, and who, is there a big dog in the room that makes all the decisions, or does everyone have an equal voice? Because every community, even though we're all in this area, is slightly unique. It's slightly unique, so those have to be respected. I wish I had more inside information for you on that. I don't, but I'd be willing to have those conversations and be transparent in what I think and what everybody wants to know about. And that, now the second one, let me circle back. What was the second? Wastewater, yeah. So, my opponent is very pro-development. He's very pro the Truckee Meadows landfill, and he wants to develop along the river. Right now, from what I understand, in talking with some people at Tumwa's events and that, we're pretty much at capacity for what has already been approved in future development. And there are workarounds that they have to do to meet that expectation are the 2 pumping stations that would push effluent back down into the ground. And that each of those is about $250 million. The problem that I have with his conversation is he never talks about what is this going to cost? How are we going to do this? Who's going to pay for it? And that, because it's probably over $1 billion, if not more, to upgrade that sewer treatment plant. And we, you know, we have to have that conversation eventually because all things don't last forever. The other part that I'm kind of concerned about, and I'd like to have further conversations, is if it's okay for us to push effluent into the ground for future development, why can't Story County and Trick push effluent into the ground and have some skin in the game for some more workforce development housing out there? It doesn't seem to be part of that conversation. Maybe there's a reason, but I think that needs to be part of the conversation too, because I think there's some great companies out there. I think they bring a lot to our state. But if it wouldn't be the first time a great company, when the tax benefit ends, they say, see ya. It was nice being here. So I think we have to look forward in a way that allows us to have good relationships with partners, let them succeed, but also protect us from being there holding a bag going, now what do we do? So that would be one of my first kind of roundtable community events, is having a real discussion about where we are with our sewage treatment and what it will take and how we're going to get there if we choose to go in that direction and how soon. Because at a board meeting, you don't get that back and forth, and people deserve to have that back and forth. Anybody want to talk about my amazing grandchildren?
I have another question. You know, the new phrase going around is unless we grow, we die. What's your sense of that in terms of the Sparks population? Is that a sentiment that people agree with? You know, we need more people, we need more companies, we need more growth, we need more land, we need more homes.
Out of 10 houses that I knock on and talk to people, 8. One is adamantly, yes, we have to grow or we die, and one is we have to grow, but we need to do it in a smart way. And that I personally feel, yeah, you have to grow, and there's different ways of growing too. You can't just grow and put the new Legends shiny penny in place and then forget downtown Sparks. Because if you're not keeping your older parts of your city alive and vibrant, and those businesses alive and vibrant, then you're dying. You can grow all you want, but you're dying on the other end. And that, so there's ways to grow your city in a way that keeps the existing very vibrant, but also thinks about how you pay for development as you go, and you do it in a way that makes sense, so that you're not going to the Legends or downtown and you walk into the restaurant, you're like, holy moly, what is that sewer smell I'm smelling? Because that's a problem in a lot of areas of development in Sparks. And nobody that owns a restaurant wants that as their first customer experience. So, am I done? Oh. So, I encourage you to reach out to me if you have further questions. You can go to my website, it's chrisgarvey4sparks.com. And if you like what you're hearing, share it with your friends. I'm not in the pocket of developers. I don't have a lot of contributions from developers, and I got in the game about a year after most politicians would. So it's gonna have to be connectivity and that personal experience with people that feel the same way. So you guys are good at that, and I hope I can get your vote. Thank you.